Hello and welcome to a Summer Swelterers episode of TF. It is Riley, Milo, Alice, and Hussein, and we are joined by three-time repeat guests. So you now have full lounge access.
Yeah, right.
Juliet Jacques. Juliet, how's it going?
I am all right, yes. How are you?
I'm very well. And in fact, I think this marks your third time on the show, first time on a free episode.
Yeah.
So
that is right. Mark that on your bingo card.
Yeah, so
it's the free one with Juliet Jacques.
Juliet collecting her 50% off at Angus Steakhouse's voucher.
Yeah, if you do two bonuses and a free one, you get a little card that that gives you half off with the for a purchase price of £30 or more, no drinks at Angus Steakhouse, Gourmet Burger Kitchen, places such as this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wimpy, that kind of thing.
Oh well, that's that kind. You need to go 4 times before you start getting.
Yeah, I'm a writer. If there's markdown food, I'll take it.
That's right.
But no, it is.
Juliet knows what side her bread's buttered on.
Joining us at the TF Cash Bar.
Yeah, you have access to the cash bar, but it is still a cash bar. You can hear the inner sanctum where Patrick Wyman is saying something.
Yeah, everyone's wearing sex masks.
No, but
no, they're not legally. They're not wearing sex masks.
Legally, they're not wearing sex masks.
Patrick Wyman's not at a sex party.
No,
he's just a very big guy.
We are very happy to be joined by Juliet, whose new book Variations is, I believe, out and available for purchase at the moment.
Pre-order out on the 17th of June.
That's right. Well, pre-order. So let's get this in right now. Pre-order Variations for a series of short stories.
Buy the book.
That's right. I have read several of them. They are compelling.
Oh boy, are they short.
The shortest stories.
We know that none of you have an attention span.
They're really not that short. They're probably
not that
too
short.
long for like the modern attention span.
Do you find Rupee Core to be too long?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, 6 tweets.
But first, we are going to be talking about how we are going to beat the heat.
Oh, beat the heat.
We are all beating the heat.
Yeah.
We're actually recording
it's
this.
so hot in our office.
Because we're not in the office. We are actually
It's hot in fucking Glasgow too. Somehow there's climate happening,
but we're not in Glasgow either. We are all recording this from inside the Sky Pool in the Nine Elms development in South London.
Yeah.
Splish splashing around in this giant, poor person proof acrylic box that is full of pool water and suspended like 50 stories in the air for some reason.
So is that on Elephant and Castle? Is that what that is?
No, it's towards Vauxhall.
We're slowly concentrating this sort of vat of our own hot piss that we're just swimming around in the sun.
We're all standing over a small crack that is starting to spiderweb a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
It would be very funny if someone were to, and I'm not suggesting someone do this, I'm just saying that hypothetically it would be very funny if someone got like brown dye that would be exactly the color of diarrhea if mixed with pool water, and from a drone, say. For example, just as an example, it would be illegal to do this, so we can't recommend that you do, were to drop it into that pool.
I certainly can't recommend that you find some way of like using the shit-lib lions led by donkeys projector and projecting the image of a spider-webbing glass crack onto the...
Now that's real chaos.
No, that's funny.
Yeah.
So for some, I think we've talked about this before, how there are these developments that are just like, yes, we've done a kind of Dickens, but we've done like a heavy-handed version of Snowpiercer.
Are you familiar with hubris, Mr. Bond?
where basically it's like,
join me, Mr. Chopper, in the Hamasha pool.
Where essentially we have like all of these wonderful amenities for the people that pay like over like 1.5 million pounds for a flat in these developments, and then the people who pay the Pavo rates of $750,000.
Yeah, you know, the scum.
Yeah, of course.
The proper working men of England.
Yeah, the bin men.
Yeah.
They're unable. But the thing is, right? Maybe it's good that you're not able to access the death trap pool.
I started off as a bin man. I worked my way up. Now I've got my own lorry.
No, I watched Question Time during the election campaign. Like 80 grand a year, that's nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not enough to even afford access to the silly like playroom for adults that apparently infinite money buys you.
There are podcasters that earn that.
You have to use a back door because they don't want to see you in the lobby with the rich people.
Yeah. Yeah, the rich people are all like, no, I'm a very serious. I am the cream of the intellectual crop. I'm a heroic figure improving society. I am why things work. I am the Randy and Superman, and I want my special.
Hey,
I want
Randy
my special
Superman,
pool.
There's an idea.
I want my special pool with only my friends, and it's suspended over the motorway.
That's all right.
Sounds
This is
awesome.
what's really struck me. It's like the area around this pool is just very kind of boring and bland.
Yeah.
And like, if you're standing there, I was looking at the picture, and there are a couple of swimmers there that are like sort of looking out, and I'm kind of like, what are you looking at? Are you just like looking at people?
The Sainsbury's
coming out of the supermarket.
Yeah.
There is like a supermarket nearby there. Are you looking at cars driving?
You have to be insanely rich to perceive the roof of a Sainsbury's. That's a privilege.
They put ultra porn up there.
Generally speaking, like Egyptian pharaohs rarely, if ever, got to see the roof of a Sainsbury's.
I mean, this is all sounding like the precursor to a 21st century Ozymandias, isn't it?
Yeah. I have seen the roofs of more Sainsbury's in half an hour than a medieval peasant.
It's just kind of sad, but like the new rich settlements are just kind of boring. And rich people, we don't make rich. Remember when the rich people used to be hard? Now all they want to do is like go in ball pits.
It sucks because
swim in small swimming pools.
They used to be hard and chivalrous.
Yeah. I bet all the apartments are like falling apart inside. They have those light switches that are like really confusing and have like 9 buttons when they only need 2.
There's apparently a ton of water damage within them.
Wait, are you saying there's water damage in the place? Are you saying that they didn't make the place with the big dangerous pool fully up to code?
No.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's also very funny that you can only use the pool if you own an apartment there, which means like I can imagine just like looking at it and be like, oh, let's not bother with the pool today. It's full of Chinese private equity funds.
Yeah, but that's the other thing.
Even if it's not, you have to hang out with only your neighbors for the rest of time.
But no, rich people love that. But the thing is, I think you brought up a good point here, Juliet, right? Which is like, rich people, they used to make stuff. They used to like be patrons of the arts. This pool, this stupid rooftop pool between 2 blocks of flats. This is our generation's roof of the Sistine Chapel.
I think this is our generation's like lead in the water pipes.
Yeah, things that we've just gone entirely mad. But
nice pool you got there. It'd be a shame if it got some Visigoths in it.
So the first topic I want to discuss.
Project the image of a Visigoth up.
Yeah.
It'd be a shame if someone were to sack it.
Oh no, a vandal.
Yeah.
No. So the first topic of discussion I want to bring us into
they're
today.
literally vandalizing the pool.
Thank you, Milo. Whoa. Where do you think that word came from?
It's a coincidence that the word vandal and the word vandalize.
Can I say this one thing about the pool, which is like
Hussein, last word on the pool.
I wonder whether like I don't know whether Milo you've ever been to any like kind of shitty English or like Juliet, like whether you've been in any of the shitty like communal pools in towns, and like you have that, and you always and you always have that like one lifeguard that's like been given power and like just is a real kind of bastard about it. I wonder whether like they have that same kind of lifeguard in.
It can throw you off the roof.
Only recommend you all take a trip to Dollings and Red Hill.
Like he aggressively like blows his whistle at like some rich guy trying to like bomb.
It's 9 Elms, so he must be Australian as well.
That's right. Yeah.
hey, no povos in the pool, all right?
So I'm going to move us on to discussing our next segment, which I know I've discussed this on The Bottleman with Dan Beckner. But I'd like to know what you all think about some of this Michigas coming up around Havana syndrome. Which, if you haven't heard of it, is American spies, diplomats, and other foreign officials getting some strange symptoms while abroad.
Yeah, they're giving the CIA anxiety disorders, which I thought is praxis.
They got like a sore throat, fever, cough.
Well, here's the thing, Juliet. I'm going to talk. There was a New Yorker article. There was an article that came out about it a couple weeks ago. I looked at it, wanted to talk about it, but I wanted to hold off for more information to come in.
Yeah.
A New Yorker article has now come out, and boy, did it have some interesting information about specific stories of people with the specific symptoms of Havana syndrome.
So when I heard the word Havana syndrome, I kind of assumed it was like sort of like, you know, when you want a sort of friends with benefits thing with your captors, but like not necessarily anything too serious.
Yeah, I want to have like a mojito with my captors.
No, so basically the idea...
I just don't want it to get intense with my captors, you know what I mean?
The
already
theory,
live together.
The theory is that at Cuban or Russian or Chinese or all of the above, agents have been using energy weapons No,
Yes.
I'm not joking.
Provided by Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah, they've been shooting CIA guys with a beam that makes them feel weird.
So,
Oh, no.
But what I think is very interesting is the circumstances where they all claim that these happened. So I'm going to read from the article here. It says, during the final weeks of the Trump administration, a senior official on the National Security Council had recently returned from a work trip abroad. He left his office and headed towards his car. And as he walked, he began to hear a ringing in his ears. His body went numb, and he had trouble controlling the movement of his legs and fingers. Trying to speak to passerby, he had difficulty forming words, and he soon realized he was in no condition to drive. That's one case.
Okay.
It just sounds like he had a TIA.
Well,
The bloody Chinese have fucked up my Quaaludes with their energy weapon.
Well, here's another one. In the Hotel Nacional in August, an officer awoke with a start to a low humming noise and a feeling of intense pressure in her head. She then got trouble with her eyesight and balance, making it difficult to drive. Another one. In May 2019, a large group of White House staffers checked into an Intercontinental Hotel in London. Before dawn on the day of the president's arrival, Sandra Adams, a mid-level White House staffer, had a breakfast in the hotel before returning to her room. When she returned to her room, a ringing sound, then distinctly painful, seemed to envelop her. Now, what I have noticed here, right, is that anytime American foreign officials or espionage people or whatever, they go to a hotel for a while, and then they get very sick and get a headache, can't talk, and aren't okay to drive. I'm pretty sure these people are all getting very drunk and then saying the Russians did it.
Yeah, the Russians got me cross-eyed.
Yeah.
The Russians got me leaned.
The
the
Russians
thing
hit
is,
me with the
right-
energy beam. I think I'm going to need a 20 McNuggets share box.
The thing is, right, I don't really have a position on whether the beam weapon that gives you anxiety is real or not, right? Because, like, much like the UFO things that I think are just drones, I think there's obviously going to be some technological capacity that, like, states have that they don't tell people about, and we're not going to find out about for, like, 20, 30 years. My concern, right, is that if this is real and it is happening, it rules. Because so far, like in an entirely uncharacteristic way, the Chinese, Cuban, Russians have been very, very judicious with this, because the only people they have hit with the beam that gives you anxiety have been like CIA guys or White House people or whatever.
Yeah.
The day they hit a real person with this is the day I'll care. But until then, right, like they mostly just seem to be making people who should feel bad and anxious about their jobs already feel bad and
Are we
anxious.
sure this isn't what gave Raphael Bear that heart attack?
What I'm saying is,
That was the one time they missed.
I think the Russians have invented a fucking conscience, Ray. And they're just zapping people with it, and they're going, oh, fuck, oh, shit, maybe I shouldn't be doing all the shit that I do for a living.
Before turning the conscience ray on himself. Well, no, I am supporting kleptocracy.
Wait until this hits the British commentariat, man. It's going to be amazing.
I was not on gay honeymoon at all. I was there to kill men.
I'm very interested in actually is if the GRU are listening to this, can you please come and play the brown note at the Nine Elms rooftop swimming pool?
Or mix it up a bit, you know, do some more fun stuff. Instead of just like ambiently giving a guy a
I should
headache.
only use this power to annoy.
The builders keep shooting these microwaves at me, and I'm feeling really bad about my bow tie.
Yeah, that's right. It is very funny to imagine like the Russians or the Chinese have developed this dastardly technology, and they're using it to like give a CIA guy a mild headache.
Well, so what the theory is, right, is that they say Russia is using microwave radiation devices, aiming them at American officials to collect information from their computers and phones. However, these theoretical microwave devices leave no trace on the extremely sensitive electronics they're supposed to be scraping information from, but then give you all the symptoms of ketamine.
Well, I mean, now you're just telling me that the Russians are extremely bad at designing these things and have inadvertently made an anxiety ray when they meant to make a...
I'm thinking this is more plausible than the Russians,
What I also think is very funny, and again, I think supports my these people are just getting drunk and blaming it on the Russians theory. Because like, how would a State Department guy even know that he was drunk? Like, those guys just pickle themselves in whiskey, like from when they leave Yale.
Well, this is also the funny thing. This explains how the Russians accidentally developed this, because like the guy who was developing it and they were testing it on were all drunk all the time anyway, so they always had a splitting headache. So they had no idea that this was a side effect of the ray.
Kind of just sounds like a really rubbish Malcolm Lowry novel.
So what they say is, They have no signs of physical impact on the skulls of the victims. But what they did find was damage to the patient's brains. The volume of white matter was smaller than in a similar group of healthy adults.
Yeah, that's called being in politics. We've just discovered that like that's bad for your brain.
But also that if your entire job as well is just like, I don't know, signing off on vaporizing weddings in Yemen and Libya, then maybe you do like have some kind of white matter limitation.
Are we pro phrenology now?
I guess so. Oh no, only on State Department guys.
Classic CIA brain pan.
Yeah. So anyway, it is. I think very funny that they're claiming some like just dumb bullshit illness.
Yeah, I think our position is like either this isn't real or it is real and it's good.
Exactly. Yeah. It isn't real, and they're just making it stupid. This is an excuse to go to work drunk that got out of hand.
Frankly, working in the Beltway should carry some physical personal hazard, just to even things out a bit. Like, just on a moral level, you don't get to like sign off on droning wedding parties all day, every day for 20 years, and then whine when somebody like makes you feel weird in your office.
It'd be fun if, like, just as a way to, like, even things out, we decided to make it, like, legal to drink drive in Washington, D.C. Just you can work in the State Department, but you might get fucking hit by a Chevy.
We build in a thing to drones so that, like, 1 in every 1,000 just flies back and hits the CIA headquarters. So you got to be really certain if you're going to use one.
That's right. That was sort of the plot of a movie that I'm half remembering. Where
Spencer Confidential too.
There's a tree in Eddie Murphy's yard, and every time he says a word, a leaf falls off of it. Never mind.
Which word is that?
Anyway, that is
like the director being like, no, it's fine because we got Eddie Murphy to do it.
That'd be like a fun idea for like an app that comes out of Parler, right?
Yeah.
But every time you say the word, we'll plant a tree.
Yeah. I wrote the script, but I put asterisks in when I wrote it. Okay.
I'm getting a carbon offset for my slur.
That's right.
You can't be mad at me for saying it.
All right. Yeah. Children. Next, before we get further into the other content, a more front matter. Boy, is some stuff happening with SoftBank.
Yeah. For instance, we noted that CIA people have a lower concentration of front matter.
That's right.
Yeah, they're very flat-chested.
Yeah, just like a Ken doll.
Yeah, that's right.
Saving.
We're going to crowdfund top surgery for CIA agents.
Yeah, they need big honkers.
That's right.
And when they have big honkers, they shouldn't have honkers anymore. We need to reverse the honkers situation at the CIA.
That's right. All the men have huge titties. Yeah.
All right. Just Alan Dulles just with some heaving boobs.
Yeah. Cool.
Just continuing to be the life of the party, continuing to be a womanizer, meeting with Reinhard Galen, just being like, Galen, my eyes are up here.
I've heard of Dulles International, but I didn't know that Dulles was into naturals. There you go.
There it is. Little button on the segment.
Yeah.
So let's talk about SoftBank stuff because boy is it ever back in the news.
The news zone.
Yeah, that's
the
right.
Goddamn news.
Welcome to the goddamn news. West Virginia Governor Jim Justice, that is his real name.
Oh no! Amazing. No.
Remember we talked about this. We talked about Bluestone Resources.
I came into this job to do one thing.
That's right.
Mild economic reform.
Jim Justice.
So, Jim Justice.
Rezone the city.
You got to say the words in that tone every time. Jim Justice.
The governor of West Virginia, whose name we've said.
What was it again? I've already forgotten.
Well, he was the owner of a little company called Bluestone Resources. Now, if you think back to our Green Sill 2 episode with Rob Smith, remember we talked about Bluestone Resources as the company for which was created prospective receivables financing, which is where you borrow against money that you don't even know you might make at some point.
Listen, I use the Men in Black memory wipe thing on myself at the end of everything we record.
For example, money you might make from a hit YouTube series such as Jim Justice with Jim Justice, where he goes around the gym stopping people from grunting and making them put the weights back.
Yeah, it's like Bar Rescue, but it's Jim Justice.
The thing is, right. Jim Justice might have to make Jim Justice because it now turns out that the governor of West Virginia and owner of Bluestone Resources, same guy, Jim Justice, is personally on the hook for like $750 million for green solo.
Oh no!
Hate when this happens.
Oopsie, my. Oh no, those chickens, they've come home to roost.
I hate it when they do that.
Yeah, it's I think Joe Manchin's gonna have to like use his monopoly over the vote to somehow fix this situation.
Surely David Cameron can help out with this.
Oh, yeah, just
send
getting
a
a
few
bunch
texts.
of like nice texts from David Cameron. Hope you're having a good time in the belly of the beast, Mr. Justice.
David Cameron talking about the belly of the beast.
Hope you're having lots of justice at the gym.
Yeah.
Gym.
Yes.
Love to touch base soon. DC.
You're Cameron a little bit Gorka there.
Yeah, Vincent Price.
I don't know why I was doing Gorka.
No, you were doing
I've been
Vincent Price is what
working
you're
with a
doing.
company called Green Cell.
Yeah.
Have you heard of fucking a pig?
I sure have. So
Join me in the referendum zone.
what I think is very funny is that Justice is being sued by basically like there's this
How can
whole
you sue Justice?
there's this whole when the House of Cards fell down, when the music stopped,
State of collapse that we're in, we're just suing concepts.
It turns out there was like there were no chairs when the music stopped, and so now everyone involved is suing everyone else
It's a
for
drum
money
circle.
that
They're
no
all sat on
one
the floor.
has.
Great.
So
Excellent.
so far, there are $2.3 billion of assets that are going to be hard to recover. So 1.2 billion of those is all related to Sanjeev Gupta. About 700 million is related to Jim Justice, which again, the governor personally guaranteed. So I'm very excited to see the jumble sale outside the governor's
just like
mansion.
3 or 4 guys is what you're telling me.
Wait, hang on. So he, in his capacity as governor, no.
He's just governor, and he also owns this company.
Oh, and he also personally guaranteed them. It wasn't like the state of West Virginia is guaranteeing this, but I'm actually going to personally guarantee it.
No, that happened with from some German municipalities. They ended up accidentally, basically on the hook for a bunch of Sanjeev Gupta loans.
Oh no.
Oops.
Yeah, whoopsie daisy. Sorry, taxpayers. Anyway,
Franz, what have you signed here?
Yeah.
It says that we are liable. It says we have to suck them off if we don't pay.
Yeah,
Which is actually fine, but
that's what everywhere in Germany is that one club in Berlin.
that's right.
The whole thing.
Yeah, it'd be sad if Berghain got shut down because of Sanjeev Gupta.
That would suck.
If we can't pay, we have to give them 800 gallons of our piss.
So the other funny thing, well, all of these bitter recriminations about sort of SoftBank are going on, there's another 440 million to account for. And that was all supposed to be sent to Katera, the modular construction company that we've talked about time and again. On
Like
this
shipping
podcast.
container shit.
No, they're doing more like prefab and put it together shit.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Where they say they are transforming construction through the innovation and process and technology. And they are the architect, material supplier, manufacturer, general contractor, trade contractor. They're going to be one of those companies, right? Just to remind everyone that like does every bit of the housing value chain.
Right.
And then that's how they're saying we're going to fix all the high prices that way. Again, one of these things where we're going to pull on all the levers that aren't connected to anything. So we're not going to do anything. Of course, they wouldn't do anything about it because it's a fucking startup.
Join me in the command module.
So, and they have these like, large multi-year pipelines of work, blah, 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 blah. One of SoftBank's big triumph investments, they were going to like, we had WeWork, but like Katera's going to save us.
Right.
Gone. Kablamo. Out of business.
Oh, not Kablamo.
Another SoftBank company, but I'm walking up to the TF plane and I'm drawing another chalk mark on it.
Auditor looking through your financials and like, sir, I'm sorry to tell you that your finances are, and I don't use this term lightly, Kablamo. Oh no,
Not Kablamo.
that's the worst thing they can be. I was hoping maybe insolvent, but not Kablamo.
Yeah, indeed.
Getting bogged down a lot of financial jargon here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that is right.
So we are
most financial jargon actually comes from the early Batman comics.
Biff.
Yeah, you just get a letter from BaFin that just says "Pow."
Yeah. Oh no. I'm gonna have to go sit in my soundproof Renault Clio and think about this.
So anyway, so the Katera, big SoftBank investee, much maligned on this podcast, also gone. I'm very excited for View. I think View, the glass that tells you if it's raining. I think that's going to be next.
That's right.
So, hey, what do you think? Say if you're a patron on this, so leave a comment in the comments below this episode. What do you think
this is the free one.
Well, no, we also
Stop
publish them on
dead naming
Patreon.
me.
Ah.
Yeah.
And
So if
those
you're-
are the only comments we read.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're a non-paying listener, don't comment because you can't pay
that's
us.
right. So
We're not reading you if you don't pay us.
tell us
Or
in the
if you do
comments,
pay us.
what do you think the next SoftBank Vision Fund investee to go kablamo is going to be? Because now we've got TF has claimed 2.
Yeah,
I'm going to say it was all us.
that's right. It's much like if you tweet negatively about Bashar al-Assad.
That's
The
right.
line
Maybe
of
those
Syria comes
companies
to
just
you.
collapsed on their own.
Yeah,
What do you do at Trashfuture? Yeah, I'm the door gunner.
that's right.
That's right. So,
Yeah. Alice in a little turret.
That's right.
that's
yeah.
right. But they basically they're shutting down so hard that they're not going to pay any severance packages, unused paid time off. They're basically like, there's no Katera here and there never was.
No, we've just closed the doors, changed the locks, put up a bunch of different signs.
Mm-hmm.
The TF Lancaster bomber ominously flying towards the transparent glass pool. It's like, they're going to
Broadsword
pass
calling Danny
narrowly
boy.
over the top of us.
Made of the glass that tells you if it's raining.
That's right. What they said, basically what they blamed were the costs of labor and construction materials which were both rising, which is true.
No.
For
But
some
also-
reason.
Also, this company has been, just a complete dog for like the last little while. So, good riddance.
Died like a dog.
Yeah, he died like a coward.
Went out like Stan
Pathetic.
Scherer.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, it's very funny that it's basically a housing developer that managed to go bust in the middle of a permanent bull market in property.
Incredible stuff.
I don't know how that happened. But I think
None of them had sky pools.
Yeah, that's right. None of them had pools that were connecting the two buildings. You know what they should have done? They could have connected all the buildings together with one big sky pool.
It would be funny if there wasn't the walkway and the only thing connecting the two buildings was the pool. So if you wanted to go and visit your
You would
friend,
have to
you
swim.
had to swim there.
Even if it's winter.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it keeps you fit.
Mm.
Yeah. Anyway.
Like greasing myself up to swim across.
Philippe Petit trying to walk across the water.
the
yeah.
last thing, right, though, is like as fun as it is that when these big stupid startups, scammy companies go bust, and it is fun, and I will enjoy watching it happen, is that the way that they're structured means that the people who are in charge of them are already set for life. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So you know, I don't know. Let's say that guy, maybe he should walk around, downtown Washington D.C. You know, up and down in front of like the Eisenhower Building or whatever.
Yeah.
Walk around underneath the pool.
Yeah.
Maybe just like crossing the road suddenly in Washington D.C.
I think, or hey, you know what? Find out where there's going to be a big gathering of CIA people, and then sit between them and suspicious-looking people. You know, maybe get a little crossfire. Maybe finally, you know, that we can get some guys in the anxiety ray who actually continue to deserve it. Anyway, that is all of the news. So
quite short on the news this week.
Yeah,
Do you want the "Well, there's your problem" news drop? At this
go
point?
for it.
I got to scroll here because I'm still on.
You
fucking-
offer something you were not prepared to transmit.
I know.
Yeah, that's that little drop signals the end of the news.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what they play when it's over.
That is.
Look, so moving into a little bit of a subject about getting your gender transed.
Oh.
Yeah,
Great, a very normal discussion to have
The
on
old
these wonderful pedophiles.
transing genders.
we're all getting transed up. So, Juliet, you and I sort of spoke about this before.
I thought you were going to say you and I have both trans now.
Yeah, actually, that's right.
Yeah.
You just knew me after.
Yeah, Riley has real passing privilege, I have to say.
So, we talked about this before, right? And how like this is something that I think, I don't know, it's important to talk about frequently because it is certainly an ongoing political process, and you know we owe it to ourselves to essentially never be complacent. But also, it's quite challenging.
Yeah, and let's face it, we don't talk about it like a tenth as much as they do.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that is so true.
That is true.
Yeah,
'cause
no one thinks about being trans more than TERFs.
That's right.
I think they think about it more than I do. And, I've written like 2 books and a newspaper column on it.
Riley's law, which we have formulated based on an observation Riley made, is that once you start posting transphobia on the internet, you will never post normally ever again.
There is one person, I think, who I know is like a bit turfy, but hasn't just been completely taken over by it. And I won't name them, but they're like a former MP. But they're literally the only person I can think of who's like flirted with turfism. Everyone else just like on Monday they're just like, so I'm not really sure about the concept of cisgender, isn't it just creating new binaries? And then by like Tuesday evening they're like waving a pitchfork in one hand and a copy of Janice Raymond's The Transsexual Empire in the other, and just like screaming about how the genders are going to like bring about the rapture.
Well, we're going to get rid of all the bathrooms. No more bathrooms for anyone.
That's right. You hold it in.
Welcome to Britain. Hold it.
Yeah, that's right.
There's just a UK border sign at the airport and it just says, hold it.
Piss in the bush.
Everything in Britain just gets way faster because everyone has to piss all the time.
Yeah, it's like being an astronaut. You just piss in the suit.
Yeah, like the news all of a sudden takes like sort of 5 minutes because it's just become this. Today in headlines, Tory MPs announced a new.
Just going to become this plan. Like nation of adult baby. It's like the adult baby takeover is very much on.
We all have to wear diapers.
Yeah, I love the idea of like Keir Starmer justifying why you should hold it in.
Well, I welcome toilets, but I think the government could go further and issue everyone with a kind of state nappy, which I think would provide a lot more.
You've got to go faster because he'd be holding in his piss as he said.
Are they going to have to rename the red wall?
The yellow wall? The urinal?
I'd like to say, just before I run off, because I do quite need to piss. It is that everyone, I think, in this country deserves a nappy, which is sort of means tested, but ultimately there for those who need it. But thank you.
That's right. So, basically,
what that interview shows us is that Keir Starmer is a man who loves his family. He loves piss.
Yeah, I think he was quite prime ministerial, actually.
Yeah, he did. He was standing with his knees together and his feet apart, covering his mouth with one hand.
Well, people don't know this, but Barry Piss is called Barry Piss because he's the only guy who's been able to hold his piss like for his entire life.
He started off doing no pee January and he just carried on.
Just thinking of all those columnists who responded to the David Cameron news by saying, well, if anything, this reflects well on the Prime Minister. And I think they would say the same about Starmer.
Yeah, that is right. Yeah.
So,
Keir Stammer, they'd call him after that.
They would, because he's so bad.
Yeah.
Another flawless victory.
Yeah, that's right.
Flawless but confusing victory. No, so, and you have your new book, essentially, is there are some of I've read some of the stories in it, and I think the one that was my favorite was written as a script and is sort of a discussion between some actors, a director, a woman called Zelda, who's sort of the subject of their film that they're making, and in the story, there is this. I think what I like about it is that it very radically it explores the radicalism and the sort of the radicalism that is forced on sort of trans people not just by their existence, but by their existence here in history and in the present day. But I think it treats the subject also as sort of, again, a source of joy, of sort of a source of connection, and a story about really people sort of using this to make art that's not necessarily sad, but then to tell like let's say something that's actually significant. And I do really recommend this book. I really enjoyed that story, and it led me to sort of think about something you told me yesterday, which is that my overall sense is that is regarding the quote, "First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win." I still think that, although we've still got a hell of a fight on our hands right now. And I just wanted to know if, before we go into making fun of a very stupid Quillette article, you could just talk a little bit about that idea and maybe about how some of it comes through in some of the writing.
Yeah, I mean, just to give a little bit more of the context on Variations, it's this collection of 11 short stories that tell this like history of trans and non-binary people in Britain through fiction. So it goes back to the early Victorian period, comes up to close to the present day, like 2014, set in different British cities. So there's sort of stories in Belfast, Norwich, Blackpool, Manchester, Liverpool, as well as London and Cardiff and other places. And it uses a range of different sort of trans and non-binary characters, so transsexual men and women, non-binary people, genderqueer people, etc. And it uses a range of different forms. So the story you've picked out is called The Twist, and it's set in the 1990s. It's engaging with the fact there are a lot of like trans-related films made in the 90s, but not by trans people. And it's obviously playing with like the Crying Games idea of the twist, which is the central character's like gender, and how that was marketed. And really, the story is partly responding to this idea. I've always loved that line that, you know, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, and then they fight you, and then you win. And I grew up in the 90s, and trans people were either being ignored or laughed at. And then we were laughed at an awful lot more in the early 2000s. I've written a lot about how comedy used trans people as this just kind of like visual and creative like punching bag, basically. And then, you know, round about 10, 11 years ago, I was part of a wave of trans sort of journalist activists who all had the same idea at the same time. The media was doing us a lot of damage. It was being incredibly cruel to us in all sorts of ways, picking on us as individuals and as a group. And tried to counter that.
Thank God
and
that's over.
Well, exactly. I mean, you know, I kind of countered that, and I thought, yeah, if I just calmly express a sort of trans subjectivity in a mainstream media space like The Guardian, then surely like reasonable liberals will look at that and think, actually, yeah, trans living, even if you're like relatively privileged, looks quite difficult. Maybe we should be a bit nicer to these people. And that's how it all turned out, and it's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing sort of deranged has happened.
Why have you even written this? Why have you even bothered writing this collection of short stories?
So yeah, anyway, like all of the British sort of liberal press just had this like mass psychosis around 2014, which has only got worse, if anything. And you know, I really feel we're very much in the like fighting stage now. You know, the last story in the book is called Tipping Point, and it's set in 2014, and of course it's that famous Time magazine, that famous Time magazine article with Laverne Cox on the cover, where they argued that trans rights and visibility had sort of reached this tipping point, I think they called it, where it could no longer be kind of stopped or pushed back. And then, of course, what we've seen over the last 7 or 8 years, all over the world, really, I mean, notably in the UK and the US under Trump, but also under Bolsonaro in Brazil, Hungary under Orban, Romania and Poland, is attempts to, if not to legislate against being trans, then to make it as financially, socially, and medically as difficult as possible. But you know, sort of younger trans people are still kind of coming through. All the surveys indicate that public attitudes in Britain are relatively much more liberal on this subject than the newspapers would suggest. And writing this sort of book was a way of not having to engage directly with the like avalanche of just anti-trans op-eds, because they're repetitive and they're boring and they're designed, you know, this kind of culture war is designed to just keep us having the same boring and pointless arguments over and over again, and to stop us like developing a history or a culture. So really writing this book is kind of an act of celebration and joy, and just an act of saying, look, we do have alternatives to just like arguing with like Jermaine Greer or whoever it is.
But why would you want to do anything else?
Well, quite, yeah.
Absolutely. We love arguing with Australians. I mean, it's something we've said on this podcast a lot, which is that our theory is in Britain there are only about actually 300 really bug-eyed TERFs, but they just all have newspaper columns.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly.
They're like, it's like a hall of mirrors full of TERFs, so it seems like there are much more of them than there are.
All the mirrors have bangs.
Yeah, that's right. Very straight.
But yeah, so I mean, I that's one of the things I really enjoyed about it. It was sort of this sort of act of, when I say positive, I don't mean sort of attitudinally positive, but I mean like sort of rather than reacting to things, it was sort of it was a proposition rather than a reaction, which I really enjoyed.
Absolutely, it sort of says we're here, we've always been here. You may not have noticed because we were, you know, repeatedly like legally and socially and institutionally suppressed, and a lot of the stories are about those processes of suppression, whether that's by the law or by the media or just members of the public or the medical institution, whatever. But one of the things about the story is like these trans people keep kind of existing and thriving. And I mean, the memoir I wrote, like published 6 years ago, was a much more obviously individualistic book. That's the nature of memoir. And this is much more about kind of trans communities or trans circles. And how trans people, there's a lot of stuff about how trans people interact with each other.
Starting podcasts mostly.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I mean,
Kill James Bond on Patreon.
Yeah.
I thought we weren't allowed to make threats against named individuals. Because if we are
taking legal advice against the Trashfuture podcast.
That's right.
Just inviting James Bond into the suspended pool.
Join me. Mr. Bond.
Oh, come, Mr. Bond. You enjoy swimming in the air as much as I do. Why deny it?
But it did always occur to me, that sort of trans people, for various reasons, hadn't, especially in this country, hadn't really developed that much sort of literature. There's some sort of poetry and drama, but it's only really been emerging over the last few years. And I've been writing this book since 2015.
Who is the Tolstoy of the transgenders?
And we have her here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a nice thought because, like, actually, I mean, I don't want to sound like one of these people who says, like, oh, like, cis het men have it the worst now, and actually trans people have it much easier. But there's so little trans literature that you don't have to do as much.
It's like the recurring joke about being the first trans woman to X. Like, you do something totally mundane, and you will get like a write up on it on being the first trans woman to like go to Big Tesco to see the roof of a Sainsbury's.
The first trans woman to have her flat collapse under the weight of badges.
Yeah, that's right. Alice is the first trans woman to be awarded the Order of Lithuanian Forestry.
Yeah.
Like one really aging Lithuanian trans woman. No, it was me. I will kill this Alice Caldwell Kelly.
Joannis Mikas.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. But no, so you also mentioned, right, that all of the turfy op-eds are the same. Well.
Oh boy.
Boy, have I mean, look, Quillette is good for one thing, and one thing only.
Yeah, grist to the podcasting mill.
Yeah, really interesting commentary.
I mean, I was so bad because look, this is one of these articles, right, where it is so removed from like what the standard sort of talking points are that I think it now tells us more about its pseudonymous author.
It's also long.
Oh, yeah, we do not read the whole thing.
It's also just like gone through a crisis for a long, because like Quillette was sort of the website that was that like sites like Unheard kind of built them off from. So like when Quillette started, they were trying to kind of present themselves as sort of being like an intellectual-ish magazine for people on like the center right. I mean, they obviously weren't, and like hiring Andy No was like the best example of that. But basically, as like that space
is really in the name.
Yeah, should have gotten Andy. Yes,
yeah,
that's right. And like as that space has become saturated, like Quillette has just like dealt with what is essentially a media problem, where if they want to survive, they have to kind of be more and more insane, which is how we get to this piece.
So interestingly, also, I'm going back into my memory palace, and I think we read a Quillette article the last time you were here about the guy who really loved his job at Amazon.
Mr.
Mims.
Kevin Mims.
Yes, Kevin Mims.
Mimsy.
Yes, it's like a bite of the Madeline. It's all coming back.
The guy that South Mims is named after.
So, the rapper
Bobby
Mims.
Mims.
We can keep going with
South
this.
Mims.
South Mims is a very good rest station. That's why I'm going to. That's my kind of contribution.
So,
it's pretty good.
Mostly thanks to Andrew Mims.
This article is called The Links Between Trans Identity, Gifted Minds, Categorical Thinking, and Anime.
Now we're fucking talking.
Let's go. So, anyway, because this is a Quillette article, it's like 1 million words long, so I'm just taking a few bits and scraps from the beautiful mind of its writer.
This headline just feels like something Alice would post.
Yeah.
You ever thought about how anime made you transgender and it gets like 5 likes?
So before we start, like I have heard this from like various media people who I will not name, who like I think are sort of flirting with the turfy side as well.
Yeah.
Whether they still are there or not, I'm not sure.
But it's like once you get to the far end, you get like Alex Ruvner, where you're calling Nate a sissy hypno.
Yeah. Basically,
That's right,
basically that. But I remember like one like media person.
You couldn't even kill Spider-Man. You're such a sissy.
One media person DM'd me once and they were like, "Look, I'm doing research on like trans people." I was like, "Okay, all right, okay, please continue."
Question one: have you considered not doing that?
Yeah,
And,
I'm doing some research on trans people. Didn't want to talk to any.
Yeah.
And I've noticed
Try to count 'em.
and I've noticed that lots of them use anime, and I know that you're into anime. So can you like identify any of your characters? So I was like,
How have you resisted being trans?
so I was like, okay, I'll like just send it to me, and like I don't know. And they kept sending me like all the kind of, they weren't anime characters, they were sort of like fan art, and it was all cat boys. All of them were cat boys.
Well,
Look, has this guy just had loads of just like anonymous left-wing weirdos say you're a dick to him,
I think
and they're
that's-
all just
I
using
mean-
anime avatars, and he's like extrapolated from there.
I do think that's it, and I think they just kind of like, and they mix up like pit crews and anime and like what fan art is. A lot of them like have discovered deviant art for the first time, and they're like horrified.
no.
I think a lot of this is like an online phenomenon of people like just discovering online spaces that have been around for ages, and just being horrified by what they've seen and thinking that like this is kind of this new stage of like moral
I'm
depravity.
just
Whereas like
completely putting the cart before the horse.
People,
as well.
people have been like drawing anime versions of themselves with cat ears getting fucked by octopi like
Yeah.
for a very long time.
Do you know that people are getting surgery to become statues with glowing laser eyes?
Which must be
about this?
protected at all costs. Like Lawrence Fox is going to be
That's
like
right.
getting a militia together to stop them
So-
getting torn down.
I'm joining it.
the writer who writes under a pseudonym is identified only as an academic working in an unrelated field. I can't
It
believe
always
he's
fucking is, isn't it?
At a business school.
It doesn't show. I mean, yeah.
So in the first
An
instance,
accounting professor.
because Quillette articles are all like 30,000 words long, because who could be deprived of a single word of Quillette?
This was part 5 of a series.
He's written a novel.
Uncensored, unedited, unspell checked.
So in the first instance, we're starting in media res because I don't want to do the whole like intro thing, and we're talking to his friend Lee, who's a female detransitioner. That's not actually relevant to what they're talking about anime at this point. So as we talk,
Okay.
it becomes clear that the boundary between porn and non-porn can be somewhat blurry when it comes to anime.
And when it comes to cooking TikToks.
Cartoons featuring cat girls with feline ears and tails, can be quite explicit.
They're called cat girls.
Especially the ones created and posted by older men. But for young members of online trans communities, catgirl characters may be little more than a cute, ironic profile pic.
You just said the thing that you just... Yeah. It might be nothing, but I've got an article to fill, so
Yeah. I'm only 200 words in, so
200 words of a Quillette article. I've barely gotten through the first sentence.
29,800 to go, I guess.
Could I get from a totally non-sexual anime game to Yuri porn in 2 clicks? Probably.
Yuri porn. Well, like porn of guys called Yuri.
Gay anime porn.
Yuri
lesbian
Gagarin
anime
porn, yeah.
Gay anime porn is called yaoi.
Sorry, everyone.
Let's be very
Sorry.
It's
specific.
porn with
here.
Uri Geller, where he bends your
Unhooking
dick
a
with
big
his mind.
paddle from the wall there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Genre
Anyway,
is called gao.
so
I
this
see.
is, I mean, the number one.
It's
we have-
called being gal.
To be fair, we haven't seen this in the pages of the Times where it's like, those cat girls.
Give it 2 weeks.
The Times is far too cucked to write about cat girls.
I'm waiting for when what's her name?
Any of them.
Any of them to just like start writing about like
Yeah.
Love Hina.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
I'm excited for a women's toilet that underneath the woman in a dress pictogram thing, it has like a big circle with a red line through it, and there's just like a pair of cat ears in it.
Let's face it, like today's 400,000 word Quillette article is tomorrow's like Times article where it kicks in just before the wankers fade.
So, even after speaking with Lee, it's still not immediately clear to me why anime has become such a big part of trans culture. So, Carrie and Ron, whose 17-year-old identifies as a girl, provided me with a detailed case study. Their gender was arrived at in part through anime and in part through an interest in Magic the Gathering.
That's right.
So your daughter's a nerd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a comedy.
Is nerd shit turning your children trans?
Players use cards.
It's like two completely separate things. Your daughter is transgender. Also, she's a giant fucking nerd. You are allowed to be embarrassed about one of those, and you are picking the wrong one.
That's right.
Yeah. So also this is very typical, I think, of like you might say like online logic lord arguments where they'll just sort of take two things they don't understand and then with a bunch of you appear to have sublimated my ad hominem language, we'll just stitch together a phantasmagoria of their own anxieties about all of them. So he's like, and so he says, players use cards depicting fictional sword and sorcery figures, pitting them against one another according to a complex system of rules. It's not that complicated.
Something activated my trap card.
Yeah. Beasts transmogrify in front of a player's eyes, leveling up into more impressive forms. The transformative theme in Magic now extends to gender. So, just tap 2 forests to give your elf +1/+1.
Yeah, you just you slam this down and it forces your opponent to become trans.
It's just it's the dunderheaded inability to realize that maybe these kids are choosing female anime avatars because they're trans rather than the other way around. It's like the parent who their kid moves to Brighton and then they blame Brighton for turning the kid gay, and it's no, that's not how this worked.
No one should move to Brighton ever. That's how it should work.
That's just your opinion.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's just my opinion.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
We're gonna move, but mostly just because Brighton's an annoying city.
I think that gay people deserve better than Brighton. That's all I'm saying. I think they deserve to live in a good town. You know.
Like Lewis,
like where in Hertfordshire, for example, a great town.
Yeah, I think
find me at the Ware Maltings, Mr. Chapo.
I think Lewis would be nice. Yeah, Chipping Norton maybe. In the Cotswolds.
That'll annoy Clarkson.
Under communism, if you are gay, you can put into the government, and they'll give you a propiska to move to Ely.
Yeah.
Driving my Ford GT40, the village is full of twinks.
I think it would be fun.
Chipping Norton now has the highest number of twinks in the world.
Yeah, that should. Pride should be moved to Chipping Norton or Hemel Hempstead. Or Romford.
It would be funny to have a really small Pride in Chipping Norton. There's 3 guys who are yep.
I stayed in a really nice hotel in a town called Broadway on the weekend. After coming
my regards.
After coming from a party at a friend's field, and then went to this nice hotel in Broadway.
My friend's field.
Just sounds
a field in England.
Another very relatable Riley story.
That's right. Yeah.
If your friends live in the countryside, there will be an associated field.
Did you say that in that earth there was a richer dust concealed? The dust of friendship.
Look, that's all beside the point. I'm saying let's move Pride to Broadway. Which has a couple of really nice hotels, and it's a very charming Cotswolds village. And Milo,
it's a great place to make it. See,
let's move Pride to the Niagara Escarpment.
That's right,
but
a beautiful microclimate,
less annoying than Brighton.
Yeah.
As a place.
Yeah.
Well, we solved it.
There's one thing we know about gay sex; it can get a bit hot and sweaty. So you want a nice temperate climate, like the Niagara Escarpment. Yeah.
All right. So. The transformative theme in Magic extends to gender. The game features characters who are non-binary and transgender. The fan culture sometimes features crossplay.
I love that they're wow, that's so out there, given that it's Magic the Gathering, and half the things it features is like an orc with 5 heads or whatever.
Back in my day, when we played card games, dragons stayed dragons. They didn't turn into cat girls.
The thin end of the wedge was Pokemon evolving.
That's right.
That's right. But when the social justice left got involved.
Yeah, Pikachu evolves into a cat girl now. They say on Reddit, feeds where gamers congregate to swap tips and observations. I love just the little Quillette parentheticals of describing something that's actually that the author doesn't know, but that is pretty well known. Just like Magic the Gathering, a sword and sorcery card game, and so on and so on. These are people who are just thrown into the world and experiencing it for the first time.
For people who know things.
No, it's not at all.
No.
On Reddit, etc., this kind of playful fluidity tends to get a lot of positive attention, thereby bumping up a contributor's algorithmically assigned visibility level within Reddit threads. And so over time, a sense of gender playfulness is hardwired into young
gender
minds.
Playfulness. And we can't fucking have that.
No.
Good Lord.
No, it's serious.
It's called being yourself and having fun with it.
Yeah.
Or your children doing it.
So this is, again, I think, Juliet, as you pointed out earlier, this is quite literally him being like, they're playing Magic the Gathering and then becoming trans. What is it about Magic the Gathering that's making them trans?
Yeah.
What about the catgirls? I want to know more about his catgirls.
No, he just leaves the catgirls there, I think.
Yeah, it's as though he like read post hoc ergo propter hoc and was just like, oh, yep, well, that settles it.
Post hog ergo propter hog.
Like, the only thing I can think about Magic the Gathering that might turn people trans is that at a if at a Magic the Gathering tournament there is some kind of like ratio requirement. All right, some of you guys have got to trans up.
Yeah, this Magic the Gathering convention is a real sausage fest. Can we fucking?
Can we?
You got a nice cheekbone. How do you feel about estradiol?
And quickly.
Yeah, I'd take 5 right now, and then they'll have kicked in by round 2.
So,
Just your huge naturals just popping out halfway through. Yeah.
He also says, and while the link between giftedness and transgenderism is easy to observe, it's difficult to explain.
That's weirdly like exoticizing to be like, oh, trans people, they're so fucking smart. It's
Why are they also smart and hot?
Excuse me, sir, I'm dumb as hell. What are you talking about?
In schools of the progressive, now this is some serious
schools of the progressive ethos, like Dulwich College, Southeast
I grew up under
London.
Section 28, bitch. Explain that.
In schools,
because Section 28 wasn't repressive enough.
Yeah,
well, quite, yeah.
They would turn it up to 29. So, in schools of the progressive curriculum, children are taught that biological sex is distinct from gender identity. Most pupils learn this as nothing more than a fact about other people.
No, they don't.
And certainly,
even remotely true. Like, if it were true, it would be cool, but it's not true.
Certainly for the jockish boys and girls in the cheerleading squad.
The jockish boys, you see.
The purported gender-sex distinction isn't of any particular interest. What about the trans ones?
No, only gifted nerds who like anime.
And again, it's also like, it's kind of like almost realizing what the point is when they're like, they're scarring our kids. We're telling them about trans people. It's like, yeah, most kids are just going to not really notice. They're not going to really like care. It'll just kind of be there in the background. And then when they encounter it as an adult, they'll be like, oh, that's something I'm familiar with. Yeah. That's fine.
He goes on. By contrast, many of the smart kids, gamers, and hobbyists who spend time in their own minds.
Hobbyists.
Yeah, hobbyists.
I'm something of a gender hobbyist.
I'm a hobbyist myself.
Yeah. I've got a shed where I do the occasional surgery.
Yes. These are the first pair of boobs I made.
Like crudely made wooden boobs.
By contrast, many of the smart kids, gamers, and hobbyists. This is. I mean, he is basically doing like the alt-right thing of
Hello, fellow kids.
Of like, the alt-right thing of basically like, yeah, there are the chads, and then, the beta males become women so they can get it. So again, bizarre crenellations of their own construction.
I thought that once you like defied your assigned category, that made you a sigma male, and that was a good thing.
The jocks at school said I would never get pussy. Well, this clinic says otherwise.
Just doing an extended, like, Revenge of the Nerds bit, but you're becoming trans so you can, like, grope your own boobs.
Well, Alice, this is kind of, sort of where he goes.
Alice, I can see you doing that right now. These,
the indoor kids basically have more time to spend on the abstract mental game of what if. And as puberty takes hold,
instead of the real game of football.
Stop playing what if and stop transing your gender and pick up a damn football.
We actually play Eton what if here. It has a flying buttress in the court.
So, as puberty takes hold, their social deficit transforms into a romantic and sexual deficit, and the hypothetical trans version of themselves becomes worthy of examination. Maybe if I'd be happier as a woman, I'd be more at ease with myself. Now add in the effect of coming out as trans will have in the other students, including the aforementioned cheerleading types. For the nerdy boy who announces that he's a girl, a trip to a pretty girl's home won't yield a romantic fumble, but perhaps affectionately communicated tips on applying lip gloss.
This guy's never heard of like trans lesbians.
You know the great thing about coming out as trans when you're at school is like cheerleaders never mean to you about it.
Yeah,
everyone loves you if you come out as trans at school. Like every school, you come out as trans. Everyone's like, "Yeah, great, well done."
No one's ever been bullied for that.
Yeah, well, I think it's what happened is these guys all started getting bullied for being transphobic and are now like, well, I assume the situation is flipped.
Yeah, like the Chads are all trans now.
Yeah, the football team and the cheerleading squad, they're just swapping back and forth.
Yeah.
No one knows who's what anymore.
Loser, you still got your original gender. I've had
It's getting
5
absolutely annihilated by an offensive line entirely of trans boys. It's just like, yeah cool.
Yeah, he threw a damn spiral to the cheerleading squad. What the hey? Again, this is just like this is like the slag of the ideology mill. Just like the poorly formed toys that just tumble out onto the pages of Quillette. Where again, it tells us, I think, just more about this person's own just sort of strange fantasies and hang-ups.
Well, look, there were 2 things I picked out of this article. Like, one is like at one point he describes the sort of like anime trans nerds as Hikikomori and explains what that term means. And it just brought to mind like this sort of weird McCarthyite guy on Twitter called Christian Nemitz who tried to make a big thing out.
We're familiar.
Big thing out of
Shout out to
Hikiko.
Christian Nemitz, who I'm sure is listening.
Fan of the show, Christian Nemitz.
Well, I called him
How's it
Christian No Mates the other day.
Heyo.
Heyo.
God his ass.
You are
speaking
our
of-
friend, Christian. So.
Speaking of schoolyard bullying, but I think he was going on about like Hikiko Marxists a while ago and got like roundly ratioed for just being a fucking nerd.
Oh, well,
right.
what's new there?
But exactly.
Yeah, I remember like when they were doing the whole like Hikiko Marxist thing, and it was all the kind of like IEA Adam Smith Institute people who
Oh
are,
god,
like,
they're such chads. Is
Yeah.
the thing about the
They're
Adam Smith
yeah.
pure
Institute.
football team guys.
Yeah.
but it's, like,
I'm sick of these gigantic, like
they're very-
Thatcherite economics guys just
like-
running
yeah.
over me.
They have, like,
Ripped to shreds.
they have
just
these very like
gigantic.
extremely online tendencies, but they don't ever like commit to their bits because they're too like they get angry like way too quick.
Yeah. What I always love about these kind of like online spats is there absolutely are huge bedroom losers on the left, but the only ones ever pointing out are the huge bedroom losers on the right. And it's just like, you guys should actually all hang out. Can we
that's
just
the
get
thing.
rid of all of you?
And the writer of this article, also a huge bedroom loser.
Yeah.
Look, like my other favorite bit in this, like, is where he starts going on about a German term like "fack idiot,"
Oh, yeah.
and I was like, no, that was just people calling you a fash idiot. Like,
Yeah.
It's because that's the
Using this Italian slur for chitty
But that's the thing.
and they all had anime avatars.
The right wing, the sort of standard Quillette logic lord guy, it does think of themselves as a socially deficient, gifted, introverted, very intelligent person.
Yeah, it's like the 2 paths diverging in the woods. You can either do a school shooting or become trans.
Yeah, or write
Yeah.
for Quillette. Those are the 3 things
Which
you can
way,
do.
Western man or woman?
That's right. But look, I want to leave. I don't like to read from Quillette too often because it is it gives you Havana syndrome to interact with too much.
A Quillette guy outside your house has just shot a beam in at you.
I hate when I get shot with the trans gun by the Russians.
I want to move on to one last thing. We're going to go a little long today because it is a proud TF tradition that now free one listeners will get to access.
It's the free one.
Which is whenever Juliet comes on, we like to read a completely strange, fanciful, and fatuous article from the mid-2000s.
Which is incidentally the time I was working in an office and would have been like reading this crap the first time round.
I ran across this article on Twitter recently, and I've been thinking about it a lot. It's from the BBC,
Always a good sign.
2006.
Okay.
And even
Fun
better
indie
sign.
about fun indie
A
magazine
written
from the
article on the
mid-2000s.
BBC is always an interesting energy. I like that.
So, the title is "Human Species May Split in Two." Subtitle: Different human subspecies
Vertically or horizontally.
predicted by down the center. Predicted by Dr. Oliver Curry.
We're gonna do
Inventor of the
fucking
curry.
Oryx and Crake shit.
Yeah,
Awesome.
well, basically, this is. I think like what I like about this article is the specifics. That the fanciful specifics that the author goes
See,
into.
I've read it as well, and it's got a hell of a punchline, but we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
So, humanity may split into two subspecies in 100,000 years' time. Well, this was written before the climate report came out.
Yeah.
Humanity may split into no species in 10 years' time.
So, humanity may split into two subspecies in 100,000 years' time, more or less
The lizard people and the dead.
more or less as predicted by H.G. Wells.
Oh yeah.
So we're doing
Hell
Warlocks
yeah.
and Eloy, folks.
When is Leatherhead going to get like blown up by aliens?
Yeah.
That's right.
Can you do Brighton as well? Me holding up a big sign, alien dude, destroy Brighton.
Yeah, that's right.
Evacuate the gays first, and only the gays. They must be rehoused.
But no
This
more
is not
Brighton.
for hate crime purposes.
This is anti-Brighton specifically.
That's right.
Fuck that
Only
pavilion.
anti its cis het resident.
Boo Brighton Pavilion.
That's right. Yeah. I hate George the Fourth.
What a sign.
Yeah, it's really long. It's got like a number of like flaps on it that come down.
Sounds like something they would have had at the referendum.
But no, you're outside. You're out front of the alien spacecraft with a bunch of like pieces of cardstock, like in Love Actually. You're just dropping them. Please destroy Brighton. Not in a homophobic way.
There's Christmas
I just
carols
did.
playing.
So
I want the alien guy to kiss me.
please kiss me, aliens.
Yeah.
Evolutionary
I want
theorist.
the alien to kiss me, but he's married to my best friend.
Evolutionary theorist
Yeah.
Oliver Curry of the London School of Economics, big surprise,
Yeah.
expects a genetic upper class and
The London School of Home
and
Economics.
a dim-wit underclass to
He didn't even predict the dim-witted upper class of like 10 years later.
No.
Yeah.
So we're just doing phrenology again, right?
Oh,
but
yeah.
backwards. Instead of like the upper class are upper class because of their better genes or whatever, we're just gonna have like the upper class will become better because their genes will become better.
Yeah, we're gonna it's like Louise Linton and Steve Mnuchin are gonna be like the progenitors of an entire new human subspecies
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
of
Checks out as far as I can tell.
of beautiful women and frogmen.
All these podcasters are going to have like really smart kids.
Yeah. So. The human race will peak in the year 3000, he said, before decline due to
do they live
Dustin
underwater?
predicted, yeah.
before a decline due to dependence on technology. People will become choosier about their sexual partners, causing humanity to divide
not been my experience.
into subspecies.
If anything, my late 20s has been coming to terms with a number of things about my sexual partners.
The descendants of the genetic upper class would be tall, slim, healthy, attractive, intelligent, and creative, in a far
Must be nice.
cry from the underclass humans who had evolved into dim-witted, ugly,
Alice, it's not all
squat
that's cracked up
goblins.
to be.
So we're already seeing the divide in the members of this podcast already.
So I love this. It's just also like someone who's just saying, yeah, well, the standards of today sure are going to be applying in 3,000 years.
That's right.
Yeah, even 1,000 years
Well,
from
they
now.
always
boy,
say
howdy.
nothing is of its time as much as a vision of the future, and you know,
This is also just like very pickup artist, right? Like this
What's
kind of
up,
like
Go? You got an Eloy jawline.
like they're kind of the whole pickup artist thing, which is sort of still kind of permeated and resonated today about how like choosier forms of like sexual selection, facilitated by technologies and like quote marks, will lead to kind of like subsets of different kinds of human, which I guess in this case would just be like chads and like virgins, right?
Yeah. So what are you saying that we are going to split into a Chad virgin subspecies?
Yeah.
I mean,
Hey, girl, you're pretty hot for a dim-witted underclass member.
Yeah, you want to come up to the big leagues?
Yeah. Would you want to see a magic trick? You probably think it's real magic.
but chads and virgins are going to be genders, right? And then within those you'll have like subsets of
I mean, this is why have academia at this point? It's just going to be like, yeah, I'm pretty sure in the future all the hot people are going to make a new species of hot people.
That's right.
He says,
All the people from Playboy magazine.
That's what the plot of the Matrix was.
in the future, humans will evolve into giants up to 7 feet tall.
up to
Sure.
7
Imagine.
This is just a guy having fun.
Humans are already up to 7 feet tall.
Well, between
there are
6 and
many humans who are that
Between
tall.
6 and 7 feet tall.
It's just
just
not
like
that
Peter
fantastically.
Crouch.
Like
Charlie
humankind.
Palmer.
Yeah, humankind has gotten that much taller in like the last 100 years, pretty much.
Had he just been like watching Peter Crouch at the World Cup or something?
Whoa,
Just
look at this
decided
guy from the
everyone's going to be
future.
either Peter Crouch or like late career Paul Gascoigne. Like,
Men will exhibit symmetrical facial features, look athletic, and have square jaws, deep voices, and big penises.
This is just
It's
this
called
is
being a podcast.
this is just for look maxing Chad's shit.
Yeah,
they
they're
all
still
read this
saying
article.
they're still saying that.
This is the BBC. What a ludicrous organization.
Maybe this is kind of what's created this weird incel kind of culture. The failed promises of this man that everyone would be a Chad was just not fully realized. And they're really pissed about it because now, like, I can imagine a lot of them were just like waiting for this moment when they would just naturally develop Chad faces. And it just never happened. They still have their wonky, asymmetrical, like, nose shapes.
They're all doing virgin walks.
Yeah, they're all doing virgin walks, and none of the girls that like they want to date want anything to do with
The
them.
girls are doing virgin walks too because it's a new species.
Doing the virgin walk.
Well, no, what it is essentially this is the ascent of man. You know that thing, but then the virgin just because after all Homo sapiens.
Jacob Bronowski just sat there with the script being, I'm not reading this.
I'd love to do something like a kind of sponsored virgin walk for charity.
Of doing
Sponsored
a 5K.
by Virgin, the Virgin Walk. Yeah.
We're all just gonna put our hands in our pockets and shuffle along.
Sponsored by the nation of Chad.
Yeah. Richard Branson presiding over a bunch of incels.
The Chadian Virgin Walk team. Very confusing.
On the other hand,
Chad has virgins too.
we'll develop lighter, smooth, hairless skin, large, clear eyes, pert breasts, glossy hairs,
Bitch,
and
I'm
even
trying.
features. They're going to become anime.
Yeah, that's right.
Going to evolve cat ears. Not really sure why they did this.
It's
But
called being trans.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Women will also evolve small penises as well.
Yeah, it's when you become an absolute dime piece. That's what it is.
Yeah, so it's very, very funny. It's like, yeah, basically everyone's going to be a hot drawing in about 1,000 years' time.
And it never
awesome.
happened, and that's why we have incels.
Yeah. So this guy, this author played Magic the Gathering once.
However, Dr. Curry warns that in 10,000 years' time, humans will have paid a genetic price for relying on technology. So basically, where we once were a race of Chad, Eloy, and Morlock virgins, and anime cat girls and stuff.
You're just a cat boy, Eloy.
I'm afraid we're going to be spoiled by gadgets designed to meet their every
Musk.
need.
Is that anything?
Yeah, it sure is.
There you go.
Spoiled by gadgets designed to meet their every need, humans would come to resemble domesticated animals with receding chins. Again, much like the current day upper class.
We're becoming
Sounds like the
Habsburg.
man animals in Battlefield Earth.
So social skills such as communicating and interacting with others
Humans
will
will
be
come to
lost.
resemble Prince Charles.
Wait, what's his explanation for why the upper class looks so fucked up now?
talk like this.
They're not inbreeding enough.
You seen these cat boys?
Social skills.
Terrible. I was on the Reddit the other day. It's all the boys with the cat ears. Very sexually confusing. I spoke to my butler about it. He said that it's called being trans. What have you had anything to comment about that? When I was at Charterhouse, it was sort of we decided we'd shave our bodies, grease ourselves up, that sort of thing. But it was not in the same manner as this, you know. Do they use forks in the same order? I just have questions.
I never thought I'd say this. Could we hear more about Prince Charles and architecture, please?
So
Royal guy who's like hornily curious about trans people is like a good bit.
So, social skills, such as
It's actually
communicating and
what
interacting
killed
with
Prince
others.
Philip. He saw a trans person for the first time in his life, moments before he died.
I sent them an advanced copy of my book.
Yeah, that picture of him in the back of the car looking like he'd just seen the devil was like he'd just seen an absolute trans dime piece out the window.
Been dead for at least 10 years.
Yeah. It was the erection that killed him. It drained all of the remaining blood out of his body. Yeah. It made a little ding as it struck his suit of armor.
So, social skills such as communicating and interacting with others would be lost, along with other emotions such as love, trust, and respect. As people,
It's called being online.
as people become less able to care for others or perform in
The
team.
posts will be incredible.
Okay. That's just called being my ex-girlfriend.
Physically, they would start to appear more juvenile. Chins would recede as a result of having to chew less on processed food.
The death of the Habsburg chin. Sad.
Apparently, okay, that's actually a real thing. I was reading about this the other day. Apparently, like companies that make fast food go to increasing efforts to make it really easy to chew because they're like people don't want to chew anymore. They're like people
why
are going
not?
to go to the other fast food company if it's too hard to chew. So we got to make this stuff like just swallowable whole.
I'd say it's
So-
more like a duck.
So
Yeah,
there
basically,
there
yes.
could also be health problems caused by reliance on medicine, as opposed to health problems caused, by not having any medicine.
Do not become addicted to medicine.
Resulting in weak immune systems. Preventing deaths would also help preserve the genetic defects that cause cancer. Thank you, Dr. Curry. And then he says, okay, then we're going to go into more
eugenics,
law.
but like dumber.
Yeah, this is a stupid guy doing eugenics. Their punchline is coming.
Okay.
While science and technology have the potential to create an ideal habitat for humanity over the next millennium, there's a possibility of a monumental genetic hangover over the subsequent millennia due to an over-reliance on technology reducing our natural capacity to resist disease, our evolved ability to get along with each other, said Dr. Curry. Juliet, would you like to say what the next line is? Because I think you know what it is.
I don't know it off the top of my head. So, for my money, this is a last line or a sort of closing paragraph to rival the great. The problem with shoes, it turns out, is that they're not shaped like feet. So we've heard all of this about his research and his reporting and everything. So I would like to present you with the last line of this article from the BBC from 2006. He carried out the report for men's satellite TV channel Bravo.
Yes! Oh, yes. I love that was produced by the same people who produced Valerie Irons Protection with Pamela Anderson. That's awesome.
You just had that ready to go, huh?
Man, when I was like 8 years old, I loved Valerie Irons Protection with Pamela Anderson. 8? On Bright, yeah.
8?
Yeah,
Are you saying that's too young to like Pamela Anderson? Well, your parents were letting you watch a girl with honkers that big at 8 years old? Oh boy, I wish I grew up in your house.
I was just too busy playing Magic the Gathering.
Yeah. This show was on between 2 different episodes of Suburbia Uncovered.
I was a different kind of nerd to the other people on the podcast. We've discussed this before. I was a more like normie nerd.
Yeah.
I was into like normie video games and like normie nerd TV shit, like stuff that's like horny enough that you can get away with.
Yeah, now
that's
all
why
in the
you're
same
the
place.
like subject matter expert for Britanology.
Exactly, yeah. And that's why I love MILFs.
So I know we've been going long, but how could we resist with such a wonderful guest for the first time on the free one?
Stop misgendering me. No, stop dead naming me.
And I want to say, Julia, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And
Yeah, and you can catch me and Juliet next week on Bravo, where we'll be hosting Bin Men on Shrooms.
Oh, remember when Bin Men was on Shrooms?
Yeah.
remember when bin men could see God?
If you can throw a bin into the back of a truck while hallucinating that you are God, you're
It's as
Britain's
if
hardest bin
all
man.
the
But they're
bins
not-
was connected.
There better not be any trans bin men.
Yeah, that's
So,
Or bin people, as we have to
bin
call them
mooks.
now.
People of bin.
People have been, yeah.
So have you been hanging out with Quentin Letts?
Yes, don't forget to order from the postman or post person, as Quentin Letts said they now have to be called.
Call me Laurie Osama because it's bin laden.
So,
There you fucking go.
God damn
There's a proper fucking joke.
oh, Milo's brother, when did you get here?
Yeah, that's right. This is completely true. Like incredibly shortly after 9/11, my dad began referring to bin liners as Osamas, and did not stop doing this for about 20 years. Yeah,
That's what people never realize, that your dad and brother are the guys from your TikTok videos.
basically, my brother's way more geezerish than my dad was.
Yeah.
My dad is like a refined version.
But I want to say before we leave, to purchase pre-order variations.
Yeah.
Pre-order a couple. You know, if you're gonna what if you pre-ordered one copy per short story, and then you read each copy with its own specific short story? You could say you read quite a few books.
You should stack them up. You should buy enough that you can stack them up facing out in your window,
That's a
so
great
everyone
way-
knows what
yeah.
you're reading.
It's a great way to hack your Goodreads targets.
Yeah.
If you live in a house that was supposed to be built by Katera, but then they went out of business because their business sucked, then consider buying enough copies of Variations to build your house.
Yeah, but build enough to like block out the view of the people sunbathing in a suspended pool.
I was
Or
going to say,
indeed the
it's a perfect book to read in a very unnecessary Sky pool.
Yeah. Actually, I was going to say this earlier, but Juliet's very interesting examination of being trans in the 90s in Britain did make me think of a very stupid bit where like woke Baz would be like, well, because it used to be that like you could only like Blur or Oasis, but now there's people who they can like both actually, and it's fine.
That's right. So, with all that being said, don't forget to buy the book. Subscribe to our Patreon as well. $5 a month gets you a second episode every week.
That's all right.
this week.
Also, it's on Bravo.
also, it's on Bravo. It's
Yeah.
just, it's like the Man Show, except Hussein's jumping on the trampolines.
You're listening to Britain's nutsest startups with me, Riley Quinn.
Right?
This
I would love to do that. Are you kidding?
This guy's balance sheet is lunacy, top to bottom. He's off his fucking rocker. He spent 5 years in Parkhurst for embezzlement.
He could do like a Gordon Ramsay show, but instead of
Someone-
like going to like bad restaurants, going to bad
food
startups.
restaurants.
Wait, sorry.
All of his
Hussein,
capital, that's right, is short-term commercial paper.
Hussein, are you suggesting that I just become some kind of like business consultant? like doing Gordon Ramsay's doing like bar rescue or whatever,
Riley
but
for
for
you.
businesses.
Yeah, there's no way that Riley would ever do that.
All right. We will see you all on the premium.
On
Bye.
Bravo.
Bye.
Bye.